Hey guys, good evening. I wanted to hop on here and talk a little bit about nystagmus. I've kind of fell off the gravy train with the whole eye thing, just dealing with some other things that I've got going on. So in an attempt to try to pick that back up, it is definitely out of order now, but nystagmus. I know a couple people in here have issues with that. I won't call you out, but if you would like to join, please do. It's the involuntary jerking of the eye, meaning you can't get it to stop. It just goes back and forth without your control. People that have it can have different severities. So I have it, but it's very, very, I know it'll probably look crazy. It's very, very hard to see mine unless you're staring straight at me and I'm trying to focus on you, or I'm tired, or I'm stressed, and it's still not horrible. Like, I posted a video, it's been probably 8 or 9 months now, and it was from American Ninja Warrior. And this dude, you know, he had this whole story about he had nystagmus and he couldn't do sports and da-da-da-da-da. And in spite of that, he did American Ninja Warrior and he overcame his obstacles. You know, triumph story, brilliant. So I put that on here. I'll try to link it if I'm able. But his was so bad that you could just barely stare at him and you could just see this, right? Which means that your vision as the person with nystagmus isn't clear. Okay? Mine isn't clear for a lot of reasons. Like, I have a human checklist of eye stuff, so there's a lot of reasons why mine isn't. But if you do have severe nystagmus, you're not going to have clear vision. You can see people that do have it, they find ways to accommodate, especially kids. You know, I didn't have very good vision before my lenses were taken out. My lenses were taken out when I was 4, so until I was 4, I was like running into walls and, you know, things like that. Well, no one knew that I couldn't see, so they just thought I was clumsy. I learned to accommodate, and I did things like sit really, really close to the TV, and my mom would always make me go back to the couch, and I listened extremely well for the most part, but when it came to that, I needed to be really close to the TV because I couldn't see it, and so that was my accommodation. There was a lot more that I did, but that's just one example. An accommodation for nystagmus, probably the main one is you'll see people like turn their head or tilt their head or go this way, or dependent on where the nystagmus is the worst. So like they do a test at the eye doctor, and you know, they do the light. It's usually a light. Sometimes they use their fingers. And you follow it. So when you go over, if your nystagmus is worse over here, when you look over there, that's when that motion stops being fluid and it starts jerking really bad. So that gives them a lot of details that they need to try to teach accommodation, or, you know, what they need to do, if they need to do patching, which is always the first line of action, because it's the easiest. Everybody in the human race has a dominant eye. Okay, the way to check that is you do your hands in like a triangle. I can't really do it right now because I'm holding the phone, but you do your hands in a triangle. So here's half of it, and you put it out directly in front of you in the middle, and you switch eyes. You know which eye is whatever you're looking at centered. That's your dominant eye. Okay. Oh, hey guys, I see you joining. Welcome. So that's your dominant eye. So you're going to want to cover the dominant eye. Try to make that other one work. Okay. Usually your dominant is more powerful, right? So you're going to want to try to make it work. So by the hope in that is that if you only have one eye, you're kind of forced to use it if you want to see anything. So it brings it back to center. Same theory when it comes to like strabismus, which I'll probably talk about tomorrow. That's mainly like weak eyes, lazy eyes, cross-eyed, wall-eyed. Basically, your eyes don't work together, okay? So the same principle is in play there. You want to bring that eye back to where it is strongest, and then at that point, your macula, your center of focus, will be working. You want to bring that into as good a focus as you can and essentially make it stay there so that vision can improve. It's not going to be perfect. I mean, you likely will have to wear contacts or glasses on top of that. Then you can try eye drops. Definitely not the first step. I don't recommend that in the first step. But you can. It's atropine. The reason I don't necessarily think that that's the first step is because it's chemical that you're putting in the dominant eye. So you stand the risk of damaging your dominant eye at the risk of strengthening the other. If you've tried other things and they didn't work, then yes, that is definitely a method you could look into. But I don't think it's number one. Glasses and contacts are probably the second. Patching is first. And I have a lot of people tell me, hey, my kid won't sit still. They won't leave their patch on. Like I said, glasses is second. They won't leave their glasses on. I don't know what to do. They can't. Well, I'm not a parent. Okay, so let me preface this by saying I'm not a parent. I don't have to deal with this every day, all day. So overlook my ignorance upon that subject. However, my mom, there wasn't any, I don't want to do it, that hurts, I don't like it, whatever. That didn't exist. So, like the air puff machine at the eye doctor, she would hold my head up to the machine and say, you're doing it, so you better get over it. So I kind of have that same theory when it comes to patching and glasses and anything else. If it's going to benefit the child, then likely it's probably, and again, excuse me, I'm not a parent, so I might not understand, but it's probably going to hurt you more than them, okay? And that's just reality. Kids accommodate much, much quicker than adults. So if you hold that patch on there, you start off small. You don't start off all day long and make them sit on your lap and hold it all day long. But, you start small and you sit and watch, let's say, a TV show while you're holding the patch for them. Well, eventually they're going to forget about it, because this other eye's working. They're able to somewhat see. So they're going to forget about it for the most part until they go do something else. Okay, so day one, they go do something else. Let them take it off. Then day two, you go a little longer. And, if they want to play with the blocks after they watch a TV show, make sure you hold that while they're playing with blocks. They're going to fight you. They're going to push you. But it's going to help. It's going to help them. I'm sure it is very hard to look at your child and make them do something they don't want to do. I'm sure. But it will benefit them. Same way glasses benefit them. Whether it be for nystagmus or for vision, if they need that, they need that. I mean, that's the same thing as a kid needing a back brace for, let's say, scoliosis. Would you rather them have scoliosis and be deformed later in life because you didn't want to see them suffer? I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. If you have other opinions, I am sorry, but coming from a medical standpoint, that's pretty much what they're going to tell you, okay? So, if you do have nystagmus, you'll have, obviously, an ophthalmologist. Now, you can have an optometrist, but there's a huge difference between an optometrist and an ophthalmologist, okay? Nowadays, they've passed a couple bills that the optometrist can do minor surgery, meaning like if you get like a splinter or something in your eye, they're allowed to get that out. I don't agree with that at all, Okay, so when I worked in the eye doctor office, that's when that bill was going to pass, and they tried to make us all call in and to our representatives or whatever and tell them why it needed to happen, and I refused because I don't believe that. I don't believe that the optometrist, the person who specializes in vision should be doing surgery, because that little splinter could turn into a much bigger problem and you're not equipped to deal with it. So you go to the ophthalmologist. That's the guy that has been in school longer, has dealt with a lot more serious things, and you want to be there. The same thing for nystagmus or strabismus or I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but that's the same theory. You want to be at the best person. You don't want to have to go back and forth from 2 to 3 people and probably get differing opinions. You want to be at the best one. Now, if you're talking about kids, which is usually when they try to fix it, they do have specialists for pediatrics, or a lot of doctors just see, like I think Minardi, he didn't see very many kids. I wouldn't recommend anybody going to him though, because he's anyways, so they see kids. They can see kids. I don't know of anybody that refuses to see kids. But a lot of the times you'll need a neurologist also, because sometimes it's not an eye issue. It's a brain issue. So you're going to need a brain doctor, i.e. a neurologist. So a lot of times they can contact each other and say, hey, I need this test. Okay, this one was fine. Let's do this. And they work pretty well together in my experience. Oftentimes even better than eye doctor to eye doctor, which is kind of sad. But you will need those doctors, at least an ophthalmologist. Kids have trouble learning to read, or just learning in general, and sometimes they take that as a learning disability, and sometimes I think it's like a 504 plan, if I'm not mistaken. I think Bethany and I were talking about that. If you're on here, Bethany, would you correct me if I'm wrong? Anyways, the school systems put into place this plan that helps accommodate, basically. So mine in school would have been, I didn't get it until my senior year, so it would have been they could read my ACT to me, like read me the questions, read me the options, and then I tell them. I didn't opt for that because that sounds miserable. I mean, it's miserable anyways, so why did I want to extend the misery, right? But that's just an example of what that plan is, that they can, so it's definitely a viable option. They can work and figure out what you're having difficulties with. If you're having the nystagmus and you can't focus on that word, then you're going to need help with that. I mean, that stands to reason. So you work on it. You have someone in school, or you have people, some eye doctors even have low vision specialists, and that's one of the treatments. It's not really high rated because it's not available everywhere, but some have low vision specialists, and they actually do help you with things like that, like how to figure out how to focus on that thing and how to make that work. Let's see here. You can also have issues with balance, coordination, nausea, dizziness, motion, depth perception, contrast, acuity or vision, and some of those you just accommodate. Motion, or not motion, but depth perception I have a really big problem with, and there's no way to fix that, right? So you just learn to deal with it. There's other things like nausea, which also comes in the category of motion sickness, car sickness. It doesn't always work. Case in point, me, it never works. But you can take medicines to help with that. You can take scopolamine, I think is how you say it. It's a patch you put behind your ear. You can do Phenergan, Zofran. Those are both prescribed anti-nausea pills. Or you can even do like, the one that's over the counter, Dramamine. Again, I'm not a good one to advise on that because none of it works. You can also, when you're in the car, close your eyes. It's supposed to help. Don't read anything, focus on anything, because it makes it worse. In my notes, I put take a puke bucket. Now, that wasn't in my research, but that is in my experience because, you know, it's really hard to try to pull over on the blink of an eye. So take a puke bucket or a trash can and then take some Kroger bags. You will thank me, I promise. So some treatments. We went over patching. We went over glasses. In the case of neurological deficits, there's medicines out there for that. I'm not too keen on the idea, or not, that's the wrong word. I'm not too informed on that process. Lighting, like overhead lighting, the fluorescents make it worse. It makes the eye jerk harder in most cases. We went over low vision. Magnification. Often it will help if you're looking through a magnification glass if you are having up close vision problems plus the nystagmus. And then of course surgery. So, you know, I guess I have a different view on surgery because I've had so many that aren't what's the word I'm looking for? Voluntary, I guess. They were mandatory. So when it comes to that being the first line, when there's other options, I don't recommend it because I wouldn't do that as my first line, okay? That doesn't mean that you can't or won't. That just means I wouldn't, okay? So there are surgeries. They don't fix it, okay? You cannot fix nystagmus. It doesn't just go away. It can get better. It can be improved. The surgery might help it. The medicine might help it. The patches might help it. But it won't go away. When that kid or adult or whatever the case may be gets tired or stressed or whatever is their main trigger, they still have it, right? So if they're not going to completely get rid of it, to me, now, again, I'm not the authority on this. I haven't studied the surgery too much to be an authority. I mean, just to be real, right? But it isn't in my top picks. Okay, let's just leave it there. So the interesting thing about nystagmus, when you get a sobriety test, if you have nystagmus, you're going to fail. So they often recommend you carry a card in your wallet because if they pull you over and they do the eye test, your eyes are doing this, right? So in the sobriety test, when you're drunk, your eyes do this. So, you know, it's hard to say, hey, Mr. Police Officer, my eyes are going to go ahead and jiggle, so I'm really not drunk, but... So that's why they recommend the card, so that you don't have to go through this whole elaborate explanation. Because again, they do more than one test, sobriety test most likely. But that next one is probably going to be heel to toe, which is a balancing thing, which I went over, and balance is not great. They can do this test. That can be off. So you can get in a lot of trouble for having nystagmus and you're not drunk, but that cop doesn't know anything about nystagmus, so he thinks you're crazy or you're drunk. So if you do have it, and you know, that doesn't apply to kids, but once you get to driving age, it's not a bad idea to carry that with you. They actually have implant cards too for those of us with implants. I'm not sure if you guys know about that. But they recommend that you carry those with you as well for the same reason, because iridogenesis, it's a different broadcast, but your eyes quiver also. So, again, I pointed out that the severity varies. You can't focus on an object or a person. For me, I can look at you and I can make eye contact for X amount of time, depending on circumstances in the day and time of day, whatever. Depends on how long I can make eye contact with you and not break it, because when it's triggered, I guess, I have to look away. And I know people probably think that that's rude, because I am a fan of eye contact. So you'll be talking to me and I'm obviously listening, but when I'm looking away like this, like you're like, oh, okay, well, she's bored. No, don't think that as the first thing, because if someone does have eye issues, they probably can't look at you in the eye for that long. And I know a lot of my friends' kids, kids love to get right up in your face, nose to nose. I can't do it. It makes me so dizzy. I mean, immediately. I don't know why, but I can't do it. So it's very good to teach your kids not to do that, because it's really not good for their eyes either. But for people that have vision issues like that, it actually becomes painful if you cannot get them to stop. In the more mild cases like mine, I can't see it in the mirror, okay? Now, the guy that I was referencing earlier, he can. His is really, really, really evident, so he can look in the mirror and see it doing that. If it's not severe, you can't, most likely, because it's a, how do I explain it? It's like a real-time thing, as opposed to if you video yourself, your eyes are in a different motion when you're viewing it later, so you can actually see it instead of your eyes going back and forth at the same time trying to see it, if that makes sense. It doesn't have to be just side to side, although that is definitely the most common. It can be up and down. It can be circles. I've seen both. The circles are probably, I would say, the most debilitating, because you get more dizzy and more everything. Side to side is generally the easiest to accommodate with, because of the head tilt and the head turn. If you're over here and you're as far as you can go, your eye can't bounce as much, if that makes sense. You're here, it's got a lot of movement. It can go a lot of places. But if you're over here, it can just go so far. So it's just got this tiny little area. So if your kid is turning their head, let them. Okay, I'm not saying don't go to the eye doctor and try to fix it, but we come up with accommodation techniques for a reason. They work. They might not be the best option. Likely their neck is going to hurt. My neck hurts. I've actually noticed myself having more issues with this lately. Like when I try to watch a video, I end up having the phone way over here, and I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, oh, wait, my neck hurts. Why does my neck hurt? Well, that's why. So don't correct them. Let them do however they need to make it work for them. Now, at the same time, you can patch them and you can do all this stuff, but until they get it, let them see. Because if you're making them do that, just like my mom putting me back on the couch, I couldn't see the TV. So if you're making them keep their head straight, maybe they can't see. That's not helping. Some of the things that cause nystagmus, albinos, that's pretty high on the list, and high prescription, a lot of myopia, near vision. They have issues with this. Marfans, we have usually we have myopia, and some doctors call it congenital cataracts, meaning a lot of times they're really referencing like you have implants. And that's not really the definition, but I guess if they're really not too informed, they'll think that it's congenital cataracts. If you have inner wall swelling of your eye, that obviously makes it worse. And some medicines make it worse. For me, mine was made worse by, I shouldn't have said causes, the things that make it worse, because you're born with it. But the things that make it worse, mine was, I didn't have lenses in my eyes for 11 years, okay? So if you look at the anatomy of the eye, the lens is a pretty large object, and I didn't have that. So my eye was very, very weak for 11 years. So then they put this implant in, and it still doesn't move like the normal lens. So it still isn't what a normal lens would be. So now my doctor says I have 2 lazy eyes, which, you know, when I think of lazy eyes, I think cross-eyed and things like that. So when he first said it, I was like, I'm not cross-eyed, you know, but it makes sense. Another thing we're going to be talking about soon is amblyopia. They can't make your prescription good enough because of your eyes being so weak. You can't see in 3D because your eyes are too weak. They won't work together. Binocular vision. So, you know, that has to do with a lot of different things, vision-wise, function-wise. For those of us that either have implants or are aphakic, meaning you don't have a lens, you know that it's just not where it will be, where it should be. So your eye is weaker. It's going to be weaker. It will always be weaker. That's just life. Okay, so that's pretty much the long and short of my notes on nystagmus. I wanted to go ahead and approach that topic since I've had some questions about it lately. And I'm hoping that clears up some things. If